about us, and it's time to bow down. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Bow Down. Dennis and I were just chatting about our weeks and started getting into conversation. We were like, you know what? We got to hit record and just capture it because we're in the moment right now. So you're catching us kind of mid-convo, but today we really want to chat about the idea of manifestation and all of the different things that brings. And I think to pick up right where our conversation was, we were talking about luck and the idea of luck and blessings and serendipity and synchronicities and how that intersects with hard work. And I think one of the hardest things for me in bringing luck into the picture, and this is kind of where like blessings / manifestation get, it's like this is the rub for me, is the free will piece. And can we prove that we have free will? No, we can't. And both the existence of God and the non-existence of a God seem to suggest that we can't have free will. So I think that's a difficulty with manifestation, in that it is an ultimate affirmation of your free will, that it is the way that you are doing and thinking and moving forward that is creating things. Whereas luck, to me, is almost lodged in destiny, right? When you just luck into something, it does feel random. It feels like, oh, well, this was bound to happen. What a lucky, a stroke of luck, right? That it's like, there's nothing you could have done to deserve it or to not deserve it, because it just kind of happened. And so luck, I feel like, is almost the opposite of manifestation in that way, where it's like, it's just random. It's just gonna happen. But then, of course, you have people who say, well, luck is hard work meets opportunity. And it's like, okay, well, what's opportunity? A random occurrence? But then, of course, we have the same question with randomness. Also, if everything is completely random, you further don't have free will. And so there's that. Riverside loves giving me those thumbs up, but you have that further tension there. So yeah, but I wanted to throw that out there with the comparison of luck versus manifestation and how free will comes into play.
Yeah, I think it's a deep conversation, really. And I don't think there's a right answer. I think everybody has to work out their own. There's a verse in the Bible that says, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. I think it is. Maybe there's something. And I do feel like everybody has to work out their own salvation here in terms of what they choose to believe. And it's funny you mentioned luck. Like I grew up. Well, it's funny because I grew up in this very word of faith evangelical Christianity, and in a lot of senses, I prayed for things using the formula, which ironically is not too dissimilar from, if you were trying to follow a formula, so say from Neville Goddard or Joseph Murphy or whoever you want to or rituals like ceremonial magic. All of it is whether it's prayer, whether you call it manifestation, whether you call it imaginal acts, whether you call it living in the end, there seems to be a commonality that occurs across all of these different things or different ways of call it prayer, getting what you want, however you want to call that. And so I used to think that it was all prayer like that, and so luck was a bad word. I would almost to the point of like. If somebody said, "Oh, you're so lucky," I would immediately, there'd be a part of me that would immediately come over the top of that and say, "Oh no,
no, it's
I'm
God.
blessed. I'm blessed.
Yeah,
It's blessing." As if to say that luck, wasn't but that to say that luck couldn't have possibly have had a part of this because God did all of it, and I guess I would argue that is luck random? I guess is the better is another question. Like, so is in fact luck random, or can you create your own luck? Is really a question, and I believe yes. I don't believe that luck is random. I believe that I don't believe that anyone has free will. So let me put that out there right now. I don't believe that free will exists, frankly, in any way that is meaningful. Honestly, fundamentally, I believe that and maybe this comes from my computer brain. I don't my neurodivergent computer brain, but I feel if you have enough, if you have enough data, so if we had a big enough model that could model every interaction your brain has ever had with your environment, every that we would be able to perfectly predict with almost 100%. Well, I'll
Sure.
say with 100% actually exactly what you would do. And so here's the thing, like, so if you were to go, so let's say I'm like, hey Reese, yeah, you're in Italy, and I'm sure they have fabulous gelato. And I said, hey Reese, how about, and pretending we were in the same zip code or whatever
Right.
postal code or whatever they call it in Italy. Like, hey, let's go to this fancy gelato place after we finish our filming or recording today. How does that sound? Okay, cool. So we go. We finish this. We go, and you get up to the front. It's like, what flavor of ice cream would you like, Reese? Okay, so how do you maybe you think about it or something, but you say, oh, I'm gonna have the chocolate gelato. Now, what happened at that point? Was there anything, like, why did you decide to have chocolate? Oftentimes you've made that decision long before you come up with a reason for it. Like, you probably can't come up with you may come up with a reason after the fact. But my conjecture, my point is there's nothing in the world that could have changed your answer for chocolate at that moment. So did you have free will? Like,
Yeah.
literally, there was no factor that could have made you not choose chocolate in that moment, as far as I can tell.
Right.
And so, why did you choose it? Well, you'll come up with reasons. I'm sure your brain will kick in eventually, but I would postulate that choice was already made for you by your subconscious before you even knew why you wanted chocolate ice cream. Um,
Right.
and again, I can't prove that. I'm not. It's what I just fund. It just what feels right to me.
Mm.
Um, and and furthermore, I like living that way because it does, it removes the need to go, to play this game of what if. Like, oh, if I could only go back and have done, and the answer is, yeah, you say that to make yourself feel good. Oh, if I'd only go back, I wouldn't have dated that person, or oh, I wouldn't have taken that job, or oh, well, but the fact is that's just a nice
You
lie you tell
did.
yourself to feel better. Because if you went back, you'd do the exact same fucking things.
Right.
Like, no matter, as
Right.
if you were on rails, because you can't go back with the new information you have now. Like, that could
Yeah.
never happen, because when you go back, you're going to be who you were then, and who
Right.
you were then is
Right.
always going to make that exact same choice. That's my view. So yeah, I don't know, how does that land. Let's stop. I'll
Yeah.
take a breath because I'm
No,
thirsty now.
I free will is thirsty work. I no, I
Need something a little
agree.
stronger than the coffee.
Right. I think that it's interesting because I have free will is one of these things for me, like similar to consciousness, similar to God, that like the biggest questions, I'm like, it has to be somewhere in the paradox that the truth actually is, that it's like kind of similar to how we're seeing, just to use an example for how I think about it, like this movement towards I'm spiritual but not religious is kind of this sitting in between God and no God, a agnostic kind of generality of, yeah, there's something bigger than me, but I don't really know if I call it God, but it feels like there's something and there's some meaning and purpose, but some stuff really feels like it doesn't actually have a meaning and purpose, and I'm somewhere here in the middle. And I think that's probably where I've heard people say, in the question of agnosticism, I'll live and die on this fence. And I like to take that one step further and like, okay, I'm gonna chop the fence up and like cook it into a meal and take a little bite every day to try and experience the fenceness of it all, because it's like it's both and. And I think the same probably has to be true of free will, in the sense that, like with consciousness, I'm using a bunch of examples to talk about it because it's such a hard thing to actually like put your finger on, but we can't prove, like it would make materialist sense, physical sense, that we don't have consciousness, it's just our brain. And everything we know about psychology and neuroscience is just the best explanation we have. And anything we can't explain within neuroscience yet, we just haven't gotten enough information about the material brain yet to be able to explain what consciousness actually is. And yet, that it does seem like we're conscious. It does seem like we're aware of being aware. And I think that that's kind of what free will feels like to me too, where it's like, yeah, you can't prove it. And I completely agree. Like whether that free will is determined by like some grand creator or just your genetics, your life experience, your subconscious, the fact that you have a preference for chocolate over vanilla, like all of those things, even if you do have a preference for it, it's that preference that is taking away the will in that moment, right? You're not freely willing anything. The thing that's doing the acting is that preference, whether that come from memory, genetics, whatever. So in some senses, yes, I don't think we have free will in a very meaningful way, but it certainly feels like we're acting freely. And I think that it's notable. And there's something I'm not quite ready to completely. I'm still I'm sitting and dying on the fence on that one too. Like I kind of do with God and consciousness, in that I just hate the duality between all of these really big questions. And I'm like, is paradox such a bad place to end up? I don't think so. But I do agree with you in your characterization of that, right? That like when I go, for this example, to order ice cream or gelato, 9 times out of 10, I order the lavender flavor. And it's like, why is that? Because I like that flavor. It's interesting to me. It ties me back to a memory of the first time I was out of the country with my parents and I tried a lavender ice cream for the first time. And it feels like childhood, but it also feels like adventure and exploration, and it's fun. And, there's just something in you that speaks to it. That, are you really choosing that, or is there something else going on there? And I think to tie it back into this question of manifestation, this is where I have a big problem with manifestation in the way that it's typically talked about, is that it is this huge affirmation of free will. And it's like, well, if we don't have free will, how can we still hold this belief that what you are thinking and doing and believing in this moment is generating anything new? Theoretically, couldn't you just ride the wave? And maybe that is what manifestation actually is that, whatever is being thought, you actually don't have control over, so it's going to become manifest anyway. I don't know.
You're right and I get it. And I think we all should ask ourselves. I mean, these are, if you pretend you don't have these questions, then you're just lying to yourself, because of course,
Yeah.
logically, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And you can try to come and listen. I know I've studied. I mean, 4 years I've been studying this, like literally autistically studying this shit. So like, like one thing. I mean, that is one of my superpowers, is persistence, to stick with something when it really sticks. It's really hard to get things to stick. That's like most. I'm like fucking Teflon. Like just everything like super Teflon. But when something sticks, it's like it just sticks. And so I mean, you can try to talk about quantum entanglement, and the very fact that you can have two electrons that are entangled, all the way across the universe, and so you essentially have faster than light speed communication, because what happens to one will happen to the other at the exact same time with no delay.
Right.
The same seems to be true with things like fungal forests, and like you talk about funguses that grow underground, right? And they could be comprised of just hundreds and hundreds of square miles of fungus, and but literally when you touch and when you touch one part of it, it's like the entire organism instantaneously knows it was touched,
Yeah.
even though they were further, like yes, I mean, speed of light is very, very fast, but it still takes time to go 100 miles at the speed of light. Not a lot of time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still microsecond. It's very small, but
something.
I mean, it's something, and we don't understand a whole lot, and so. But my whole point is, and I think this was totally Neville's point, and the point of a lot of people who teach this. Unlike religion or Christianity, whatever religion it is, Christianity is an easy foil because I grew up with it. But
Right.
it's this whole idea of be good here, however you're defining good. And I think the problem has always been in that definition of what good is. But
Yeah.
if you're good, you're good here. so that you can get a lot better in the future. But we can't actually prove that you just have to trust us. Wink, wink. Believing in God, you believe in Jesus, you believe he died for your sins, you say the sinner's prayer, boom, you've booked your one-way passage to heaven. And depending on who you talk to, there's no way you could ever lose that. Once saved, always saved, whatever the case is. But boom, you're make no mistake, this is a transaction for most people. And I'm not going to say everybody, because I think people come to things on their own terms. But it is transactional. But if you think about it from a logical perspective, you're basically purchasing your actions are purchasing your afterlife. So you're buying eternal happiness for by buying into this deity, buying into this. But the problem is you can never actually confirm that.
No.
There is absolutely no way that is non-verifiable, right? I cannot prove that there's a heaven or a hell. I cannot prove that if I say the sinner's prayer and I believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, that he's been raised from the dead and he died for my sins, and I confess with my mouth that he is Lord, and depending on who you talk to, if I'm baptized properly, then I'm good. I've made it. And, doesn't matter what I do, I can slide into heaven safe. No matter what, doesn't matter. I can live like the devil, whatever that means, for forever, and then slide into home, just beat the tag, that and safe, the God, the eternal umpire, calls me safe, but there's no way to prove any of that, right? I mean, you cannot test that. So for me to proselytize or evangelize and say, oh, you should believe in Jesus because of X, Y, and Z, but I can't prove that. No one can prove. Like, you can't point to somebody who can say, yeah, I went to heaven, it was awesome. I mean, you have near-death experiences, this, that, and the other thing. But interestingly, those near-death experiences almost always seem to occur and under whatever religious framework you were brought up under. So people who are Christian don't see Vishnu when they have a near-death experience in general. So that may point to something. Now, again, not discounting anyone's near-death experience, but it's funny how that works. But the reason I say this is different, and I've floated all over the place, is you can test this. Like, I don't ask anybody listening to say, oh, this guy's, I should believe this. Like, I'm not saying get saved. I'm not saying you're going to go to heaven. I'm not saying anything. I'm saying fucking test it. Like, see what happens if you actually live this way, where you actually believe that you have. Now, I don't want to say control, because I don't think you have control. And that's how I got into this. It was starting to try to control things. Like it was, and I'm not gonna, I mean, there's always parts of us that want to control. That's our ego. That's our human self. That's our not self in the terms of human design, which we've talked a little bit about before. Like, that's the not self coming in. That's, or you want to talk about it in IFS language. Those are parts of us. There are scared parts of us who want to believe but are scared, and they try to protect us. So we have all these things that are like, could this in fact be true? To me, I always ask the question, is this expansive or is this restrictive? So to me, the very thought that I have the ability to shape what my existence looks like by how where I choose to dwell mentally and imaginatively, where I choose to let my soul dwell. That's how I view it. And so and I can say I have tested it, and it seems to work, like, in ways I can't explain. And in ways that even if I tried to, I could come up and share success stories, which people absolutely love. And I have multiple success stories that I could share. And maybe over time, as we continue this discussion, or we talk about it again, maybe I'll share more when they're relevant. But at the end of the day, what I share doesn't matter, because you can experience it yourself and just see what happens and test it. Just like every other fucking thing a scientist does, you can test this. Now, it's not testing like a structured hypothesis, like H naught, that, this has no effect, HA, that this does have some, I mean, I'm not, but, everything I believe, everything I preach, if you will, or I evangelize, and this is what I love talking about more than anything else, because I think it's so fundamental to who we are. And I just want everyone to, once you believe this, you just want everyone else to see this, because it changes everything in your life. It changes how you see
Yeah.
everything happen. And it's this very simple idea of whatever you want, believe you already have it and it's yours.
Yeah.
Like that
So,
Jesus said it. It's so
yeah.
profound to me. Those are so simple words.
How do
And yet it's the
you
foundation of everything I believe.
Right, right. Um in questioning, absolutely not. Like truly from a place of curiosity, just because like this is what I have been really thinking about when it comes to this stuff. How do you cash that with no free will? Like if it is whatever you want, you will have, you can have, and it's about choice. It seems almost like it has to be predetermined then. And then of course, using Christianity as a foil again, we have the predetermined salvation thing where it's like, oh well, it's already there are certain sects that say like whoever's going to heaven we already know, and whoever's going to hell we already know, and some people are going to heaven and some people are going to hell. You evangelize anyways and just hope that you are fulfilling, you're reaching one of the people that is going to heaven eventually. I suppose that doesn't quite make sense, but in feeling the power of like how my life does get better when I am focusing on positive outcomes and believing in my power and stepping into my strength and feeling all of that energy, but almost not fully being able to actually test it, because there is always that seed of doubt that is one, just like, is it going to work? Like, how do you actually believe something if you have doubt and like you're testing it, but you can't fully test it? So it's like there's that weird phenomenon. But then I also have this doubt that is the free will piece that's like, well, if I don't really believe that there's free will, but I believe that I'm manifesting what's happening because of my choice, is this actually going to do anything? And therefore not being able to actually fully test it. Does that make sense? I would just love to know your thoughts around that and how you kind of how you think that tension through.
Yeah, it can be uncomfortable. I guess so let me see where I go with this. But I mean, first of all,
Yeah.
so this idea, so okay, I believe I have it and I will. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
I choose to live this way. One would say. So was it my choice to this hit me? It resonated with me somehow, and so now I choose to explore that, whatever that means. So I choose to believe in it. I choose to try it out. I choose to test it out. Now, the real question I have is did you actually choose to test it out, or did it choose you? Because a
Mm,
listener could be listening to this, never having heard of anything we're talking about. They hear those words and it's like, maybe I'll try this. Did they really choose to try it, or did it choose them? They just happened to be listening to this. They clicked on YouTube and maybe you create a 2-minute piece of what we just talked about. They click on this and all of a sudden it's like, this is interesting because it links with something else I've believed before, but kind of discounted. Maybe I'll try it again. And it worked. Was that free will? Was it free will that I became, I grew up under this an evangelical word of faith, name it and claim it, prosperity gospel Christianity that actually is very similar to what we're talking about here. It is
yeah.
basically manifestation in a Jesus
Right.
show. Like,
Prayer is
is what it is.
manifestation. Yeah.
You know, so so to me, like again, where was the choice in any of
Yeah.
this? Like, where did you really choose? And so I kind of try to look at everything, and it's an interesting thought exercise to we assume cause and effect, that I did something, so therefore, so I wanted this. I believed I had it, whatever that means, which you can't really fool anyway. There's a whole question of what does it mean to believe that you've received something.
Yeah.
In truth, what does it really mean to really believe that it's something is yours? Like that's a great question. I mean, because you can parse that a whole bunch of different ways. Like, but it's not, and so again, I go back to this idea of what if we have cause and effect reversed? Just as a thought experiment. What if the thing we so in other words, I want this job. I'm going to manifest this job that is that I think is perfect for me. And so how do you want to do that? Well, I mean, let's use what Neville Goddard would have suggested, puts in his books and his works. And by no means I even think he thinks this is the only way to do it. I certainly don't. I'm not it's got to be, if it's not, I don't make a gospel out of Neville either. I mean,
Right.
he's very great. I think he's a great teacher, and he has very interesting things to say. And in fact, most of his work was about the promise anyway. Like, he actually has very little about the law, what he calls the law of the law of assumption, which is what this whole thing is, and which sort of the law of attraction kind of tangentially.
Yeah.
The secret was really big, but the secret was so big because people used it and it worked. Like, things actually happened. That's why it sold millions and millions of copies.
Yeah.
Things that don't work don't usually, the problem is they weren't sustainable, because it's not meant to, it really isn't meant to be a abracadabra magic spell kind of thing. Like, I think we've got this idea, like Harry Potter, like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm gonna manifest this, zap, and boom, all of a sudden, what I wanted is ahead of me. And I'm not saying, maybe there's people who can do that, and good on them. Like, that hasn't personally been my experience, that things like
Right.
that, that I'm able to do things like that. But again, maybe that's my own limiting belief in that. Like, I don't believe that that's something that I can do. And if I changed my belief, because again, it's according to your faith, be it done unto you. Again, moving on
Yeah.
the Christian side, which, and all of this is true in a whole bunch of different, so much boils down to this simple idea of, what do you believe? And I mean believe with a capital B. What does your entire being believe? Like, we believe if I fall off of a 10-story building, I'm going to die. Like, that's a knowing. Like, that's beyond belief. Like, I do not
Right.
have any expectation. Which is interesting in the Bible. That was one of the ways the devil tempted Jesus, right? It was to have him go to a tall building, and he said, "Throw
Yeah.
yourself off this building." But that's something we know, right? If I jump off of a 10-story building, it is almost certain. I mean, there's certainly people have skydove from 10,000 feet and miraculously survived. But most likely, I know if I jump off this building, I'm going to die. I don't know how quickly I'm going to die. Might I survive a few minutes? Yeah, possibly. Could, maybe even longer. Depends on how I hit. There's a whole host of factors. But I thoroughly, I don't need to even test that. Like, I have a pretty good, but does that have to be true? Like, could you truly believe that you transcend the laws of physics? And there's no reason why you couldn't. Now, I'm not going to test that, because I don't, that's not what I'm called to do. Like, I don't need to prove anything, because why do I need to jump off a 10-story? And furthermore, I guess there's a part of me that believes if there was ever a situation where I needed to jump off a 10-story building, it would work out for me, because the only reason I would be doing it is because I needed to. Like, I don't feel the need to test little things. I mean, Neville talked a bunch about this ladder experiment that you'll hear in these manifestation circles and on Instagram channels and things like that. And it was this very simple exercise where you you imagine yourself climbing a ladder. So you put as much detail, before you go to bed one night, you just imagine, you put yourself in the first person act of literally climbing a ladder. And you do so with, now here's the trick, or the, not the trick, but here's the challenge, is you simply imagine climbing a ladder for the sake of climbing a ladder, and you feel yourself do it in your physical body. You feel your imaginary self put your hands on the rungs of the ladder. You feel your imaginary self climbing up this ladder, and you do this, in this experiment until it has the feel of reality, is what Neville would say, until it feels real, and then you drop it and you let it go, and you don't think about it anymore. And many people have done this experiment. I have as well, and have found results in it, that they for whatever reason ended up climbing a ladder in the very near future, which is something that, well, I mean, sure, if you're a painter, you might expect to climb a ladder. I don't as a regular practice climb a ladder. I've had stuff like this happen that you can absolutely chalk up to mere coincidence, and I wouldn't blame you for doing it. again, the why is it better? Why is it more lovely, more poetic to chalk it off as pure coincidence? Like,
Yeah.
what happens if you don't? And so to go back to the cause and effect thing, because I wandered around. We assume that that time is linear in nature because to our experience it is, because we don't have a way of moving in backwards in time per se. I mean, I guess you could call memory going backwards in time, but we assume that, okay, so I do this here, you know, I want this, I want X. I'm going to try to manifest X, which is a problem. You never try to manifest anything. You're always manifesting at all times, every moment of every day. You're manifesting. You don't have to try. In the same way, you don't have to try to breathe. You don't have to try to make your heart beat. It's just the way it works. So that's number one. You're always manifesting something. If that is the case, why not manifest what you want? Why not focus on the things that are lovely and are pleasing to you and make you
Yeah.
happy? And but so people, but what if cause and effect aren't linearly related in the way we think they are? That what if there is no time, and so the very fact that I want this thing or desire this thing is because future me, in some way that I don't understand, has communicated that's with past me, because to me time doesn't exist. So all of these things can be true. So in other words, the cause and effect are backwards. That in fact I choose to manifest whatever it is, that this job, this person, this item, whatever it is, this money. Not I choose to do this because future me has determined that this is what I need to have, and so it's going backwards in time to give present
Right.
me what's
You're stepping
necessary.
into the frequency of what already is.
Well, and yeah, and that goes to the argument everything exists all at once. So that there's a
Right.
great movie, everything everywhere all at
Everything
once, or
everywhere all
whatever
at
the
once.
case is,
Yeah.
which is just a fantastic movie, and I certainly recommend everyone. In fact, that would be an interesting movie to do a podcast on. I think
Yeah, totally.
because there's a
Especially
ton of
with
stuff
divine
there.
feminine in like the mother-daughter relationship too. All sorts. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to think about that. Put a pin in
Yeah.
that. But so again, that when if you start to think along these lines, it's where it gets interesting. And I'm not here to say this is true or false or anything else. Like, I'm just here to say try it. Like, I'm also here to say I am 100% confident. I'm 100% confident that it's true. That whatever you desire, I believe, number one, that your desires are from you, and there is no
Mm,
such thing as a bad desire. Now, there may be misplaced. I think there's desires we think we have, but that deep down we don't necessarily, and we should explore that to make sure that there may be parts of us that want this thing, and we mistake part for whole. There may be parts of and this is where IFS is very interesting. There's parts of us that crave this thing, but is it what our true self needs or wants? And to me, I think you examine, and the scriptures say examine yourself, right? Test yourself, and I think that's what we should do with all of our desires. But if you've tested yourself and said, yes, I know I want this, like, then I truly believe it was meant for you, and the only reason you want it is because it was meant for you. And so if that is true, again, it throws this whole cause and effect thing in. Now, again, can you just say, okay, I believe this is mine, and so it is? Like, that's really all it takes. It's that we complicate it. We put in, oh, I need to do affirmations. I could do robotic
hmm
affirmations. I could sit here and say, I have this job. I have this, whatever your robotic affirmation is. Everything comes to me easily, just over and over again. And I've done that. I don't feel it's necessarily it's not what I need to do. It doesn't necessarily, it's not where I am in my current journey, but for other people that can be a way. Everybody has a different exercise, or to me, technique is it's just a tool. It's just a way to get you to see things differently, to look at things from another
Right.
perspective.
Yeah. One of my favorite things with like witchcraft that people don't know that they're already doing, or like, the Arthur C. Clarke, any sufficient science is indistinguishable from magic, is affirmations, where it's like, I was taught affirmations in fourth grade, before I took the tax test for the first time. This is pre-STAR, which I was about to say dates me a little bit, but I'm like, I'm still so young, so it's like, how much is that actually dating me? But pre-STAR test, it was the tax test in Texas, was the standardized test that we all took. And literally our fourth grade teachers taught us positive affirmations that was, I am smart, I am capable, I am a good student. I remember my lessons. My studying is strong. Like, I forget exactly what all the affirmations they taught us were, but they taught us affirmations, and then we all glued googly eyes onto little puff balls, and the puff balls were supposed to be our affirmation buddy that we all got to take into the testing room. And, you know, of course you could pick the color of your puff ball, and at the time I was in fourth grade. I was really edgy and didn't like pink, so I picked orange because I thought that was much cooler than pink. Now I would definitely pick pink though. But
purple all the way, baby. Purple all the way.
Hey, purple, go Frogs. My alma mater. But
oh yeah,
you take your little puffball affirmation buddy in, and you can look and glance down in the middle of your standardized test and remember, I am smart. I am capable. And it's like, that was just a lesson that we had in fourth grade, and no one batted an eyelash at it. No one was like, this is weird, hippy dippy, whatever, because it's like, we have the psychology. We know, even as simple as like, if you smile, if you force yourself to smile, it communicates to your brain that you're happier. And it's like, there's something to that, right? That we can quote unquote explain. And I think then when you take it to its logical conclusion of like, okay, affirmations are just wiring a pathway in your brain, why can't you kind of push that point, right? And continue wiring these things to be so. And even then, if you're like pre-programming for a reality that you'll be at eventually, right? Like you almost have to prepare the path. And maybe that's what manifestation is. It's like clearing the pathway in the woods to be able to walk down to get to that specific thing. I don't know, but just a thought there.
I love what just popped up for me when you said that. I love, and it's we are both. Manifestation is us playing the role of John the Baptist. And we are Jesus. And so that the whole idea of learning about manifestation, seeing it to be true, is merely there to pave the way, to prepare the way for you to know who you really are.
Yeah.
And you are,
well, and when everyone... Right. When everyone first sees Jesus, what do they all say? Well, it must be John the Baptist resurrected. They all think it's John because John the Baptist is the cool guy in the Bible. Like, let's be clear. John was the celebrity that everyone was like, oh, he's the Messiah, until apparently, quote, it's like in the later Gospels, I think is your Bible knowledge is so much stronger than mine is, so correct me if I'm wrong. But I think it's one of the later Gospels when John finally says, oh, no, I'm not the Messiah. It's this Jesus guy. But it's like, I do love what you just said about the idea that like, well, they're both. Why in messianic literature do we have to say there's only one? Which I guess that's kind of like Messiah, chosen one. But it's like, in some sense, a lot of people thought Jesus was John, at least for this little period of time. John was preparing the way for Jesus. They're both doing the work of God. It's serving that same mission and that same purpose. And in this way, we are being John the Baptist for our future Jesus, which I'm just hearing all of this through the lens of my Southern Baptist family and how sacrilegious it all sounds.
It can be tough to say.
right. That programming is still in there a little bit too.
It takes a while, Reese.
Yeah. I think that's really beautiful, because also another thing I think about a lot, and I do really hold to be true, is this idea that like when we hear that Jesus is the Son of God, I'm like, how many times in the Bible does it say we are all the children of God, right? And it's like, in some senses, anyone who is a prophet, anyone who is a Messiah, is kind of so because they have claimed it and own that title. And I think that it's something that we all could do, in that if Jesus was truly human, as the Trinity would tell us to believe, there is nothing that is preventing any one of us from doing all of the things he did, including rising from the dead, with true faith and belief in God, because if we are the children of the Lord, Jesus was the Son of God too. Of course, then the Trinity and Jesus actually being God then complicates it, but I think that within our shared worldview of at least this piece, that like we are all God, because we're fractals. We're fractal images of that. But the Bible also says we're all made in the image of God. So yeah, I'm taking us down a different pathway a little bit, but I do really like that a lot. In terms of this stepping into your power, and kind of, there is something about manifestation that feels like seeing your godhood, your I amness to me, and owning that power. Another thing that I'd like your 2 cents on is the way that, which is like my other hanging point with manifestation, or sticking point with manifestation, is the way that it sometimes, I don't think that this is what it's intended to do. I think it has the accidental implication of victim blaming sometimes. And I do struggle with that, where it's like, oh, well, you're manifesting all the time, so you create your reality. And it's like, then I'm driving in downtown Dallas and I see a homeless person, and it's like, I don't think that they chose that, even if it's, I get that that's an oversimplification of it, but I would like to know how you think of that as well, because I have my way of kind of like, I guess, sidestepping that for myself and feeling okay with it, but I'm curious how that hits you.
Yeah, I mean, again, these are the classic questions, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, and at the end of the day, it kind of boils down to the why does suffering exist in this world, right? And it's a big argument against in atheistic, debate circles, right? Why the idea of a loving God and an all powerful God, why then is there suffering? And particularly, I think some people get hung up on like why do animals suffer? Right, like okay, you could say humans are suffering. If you believe that you're being refined in fire, and the point of this suffering is to get better,
This growth,
and blah blah
and
blah.
yeah.
Sure, then okay, fine. Then that you can hand wave away human suffering in there, but it's really hard. And I agree with people who do this. Like, animals are innocent. If there were a God and then we're so omnipotent and all knowing and all good, why would they set up a system where animals eat other animals, and
Yeah.
natural selection is as brutal as it is? So and to me, this is the same sort of, why is this, why is this man where he is? And it does it, blame, so this idea of blaming, right? Oh, well, it's his fault he's there. And I guess the way I handle it is well, I don't know the answer. So I don't have some great, oh, this is why.
Sure.
Because I think it's arrogant to suggest I would. I guess I would transform that problem on his head. And if that bothers you, then why don't you imagine him? Why don't you manifest something beautiful for this homeless guy? Is what why am I sitting there trying to figure out why he's in this state? Why don't I do something to just pull him out? I mean, it's like watching somebody drown in a pool, and instead of just throwing them a life preserver, which if you truly believe this is what's going to get them out of there, it's just point and say, well, you should have learned to swim, or man, if you only learned to swim, that's dumb. Like, and again, it's our mind. I mean, it's dumb and it's beautiful, right? Because we want to understand, and it's our logical side. So it's natural to do this. And there aren't good. I mean, I could come up with 5 answers, and they could make logical sense. But at the end of the day, it's just okay if I care. I mean, so what are some arguments? Well, somebody would say, well, if we're all God, and we chose to come down here, and Neville was very fond of saying, God became man so that man could become God. And this idea of he became, and there's hints of this even in the New Testament in terms of, there's a verse in Philippians chapter 2, which is a kind of a confusing verse. The Greek is really weird, but in the King James, it's almost incomprehensible. Newer translations have it a little better. But it's this idea that, Jesus didn't think that that equality with God was something to be held on to. It's this really weird formulation. And Philippians is actually probably the first actual book of the New Testament in terms of when it was written. It was probably the earliest of Paul. And it is, most scholars are pretty convinced that Paul, the historical Paul, did in fact write the gospel or the epistle to the Galatians. Anyway, I digress. It's this idea that we became so completely God or man that we forgot we were God, because you couldn't play act at being not God if you knew you were God. And so that the whole purpose of this the whole purpose of this grand experiment, whatever it is here on this dimension, is to have you to come to the recognition, to the realization, to the growth, the unfolding that you are in fact God, that you are just playing with yourself here. This whole world is just God, experiment, like having fun. And what fun is it if you know the outcome? Like, if you are the creator, you are source, you started this whole thing, and you're in control of this whole thing, whatever that means, forgetting about words like omnipotent and whatever. Just you are this being that is beyond anything we can understand, that we can't. It's like the infinite. We cannot as humans understand infinity. There is no, even something as simple as this concept of you shuffle a deck of cards, thoroughly shuffle it, right? Truly randomly shuffle it. You will have never, that combination of cards that came out will never, ever, ever be seen again in the history of the universe. Like, literally, that ordering of cards is probably unique. Every single time, shuffle it again, there's an entirely unique shuffle ordering of cards. Everyone on Earth shuffles cards every minute, every second of every day, and they live forever. And by the time the universe dies, you still probably have not had a repeat shuffle. That's just a finite number. I can write it in 3 characters: 5, 2, exclamation point, 52 factorial. Literally, that is something, a concept that humans can. It is so large, it might as well be infinite. We can't comprehend that big of a number. And so I don't know how I got off on that, other than I like numbers because I'm a nerd. But my point is if something so trivial can be so big and we can't understand. I mean, you can hold it in the palm of your hands, a deck of cards. Anyone can understand that concept of the different ways you could order a deck of cards. And so how are we going to understand the idea of infinite universes and infinite time? And so how can we hope to understand whatever we call source or God? Because it's so much beyond our understanding anyway. And so, near as I can tell, this is just how it works. Like, and so what is, and again, the C.S. Lewis, has that famous argument of, well, what does it cost me to be what is it, or no, Pascal's wager. I'm sorry, that's what it was. But C.S. Lewis talked about.
Oh, yeah.
This idea that what does it cost me? It costs me so much if there is a God and I'm wrong, but it costs me so little if there isn't a God and I behave this way because I'm. Now, we could dissect that because, do we think that in fact Christianity is a benefit or a detriment to society in general? And I think there's arguments there. But, again, I would make the same. I would take that same thing and apply it here. To this concept of, again, just let's define manifestation as I have some ability to influence. My thinking affects what happens in my life. My beliefs affect what happens in my life, good, bad, or ugly. And people would say, "Oh, I didn't believe for this. I didn't want this tragedy to occur to me. I didn't want this to happen." Of course, the conscious you didn't want it to happen. However, it could, one way of thinking about it. And I'm not, and again, it's not victim. I don't ever want to victim blame or anything like that.
No.
But there was a part of you that wanted something else very badly, and in order to get that something else, this was the way it happened. And again, sometimes it can sound like the whole, I have a genie with 3 wishes. How do I word my wishes, right? Like,
yeah.
I've seen people go, ChatGTP, create for me an airtight wish that I can make, that it can't be turned against me in any way, shape, or form. And so it's like, okay, well, I want to manifest this new job, but I want to make sure it's this, that, and the other thing. Well, again, the more restrictions you put on things, the harder you make it to happen. And by the way, this is also why I do love things like magic or, esoterica, the occult. You can ask me, oh, do I believe that these things exist? We talk about Lilith a lot, and other, we haven't talked much necessarily about other esoteric things, but we've definitely talked about Lilith. And you can ask the question, do I believe that, what do I get out of, thinking about Lilith or talking about Lilith,
Right.
or how doesn't that contradict what I'm talking here about manifesting? And I've thought about this.
Yeah.
And my answer is no. If I'm God, I'm creating everything. And so the very fact that I choose to believe in this idea of this archetype of Lilith, or what this entity, this energy has, and it makes me, I'm allowed to do that. Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't contradict anything, because I fundamentally believe it's all made up. I'm making it up. So why
Right.
not make up what I want?
Yeah, what you're saying too of this, like, the way that it does make you a better person, right? Like, I think judge thee by its fruits, or what's that? I'm
Yeah, yeah.
forgetting the exact verse.
You can tell a tree by its fruit, right?
Yeah, and it's like, what does the fruit bear out of doing something like this? And whether or not, like, I think you've used this example before, like, I really want a cool new Ferrari, and then you get a sick new Ferrari. Like, obviously that would be a really great, just cut and dry example. But if the thing that you're manifesting is, I think usually the things that we're manifesting aren't a new car, aren't one more decimal point on the paycheck, right? The things that you're manifesting usually are, in the car situation, it would be, like, I don't know, admiration or popularity. In the money situation, it would be safety, security, comfort. And I think when we take it to that next level, if you have the thought process of, I am safe, or I am comfortable, or I am admired, I am worth admiring, right? That does change the way you show up in the world. And I think when you hold the energy then of, I am worth admiring, people do start to admire you a little bit more, right? That almost like fake it till you make it thing, that I think in some lights can be really detrimental. Because I think for me, for a really long time, I used fake it till you make it in a really toxic the toxic positivity, right?
Toxic positivity is a thing.
I did that for a long, long time. And now when I say fake it till you make it, it's the, even when I don't necessarily feel the crown on my head, I choose to put it on anyways, right? And I choose to believe that it's there. And sometimes it feels like I'm faking it, but also in the same way that, like, Santa Claus is real. Is Santa Claus true? No. But is Santa Claus real? Yes. In the sense that it's like, is there an actual mythical being in the North Pole making gifts for kids on Christmas? No. But is it very real to a majority of the population? Well, I actually don't know how much of the population kids make up, but yes. And that energy is so alive, right? And I think it feels kind of similar, and maybe it does sound like magical thinking in some ways, but I'll take it back to the psychological example of smile, and it tells your brain you're happy. Like, there is some magical thinking that we do have science to back it up for. So I totally hear what you're
totally
saying.
right. No. I mean, it's a well-known sales tactic, right? You get somebody to say yes 3 or 4 times, and their brain is positioned to say yes to what you're. So it's like, hey, is it okay if I talk to you? Yes. Oh, it seems like you're having a really great day. Yes. Oh, I see you like to fish. Because they get a picture of a marlin on the. Oh, yes. Okay, well, it just puts it just works. Like, there's an energy there, and that's, and again, I think the veil is thinner for some people than others in some very many ways. And for me personally, and again, I think maybe it's because I am neurodivergent. I do not feel things in the way other people feel things. I feel very dead inside from it takes a lot to get me to experience things spiritually. and that's just the strength of my logical brain and my parts. And you can attune. I mean, I'm learning more and more every day to attune to it. But for a lot of ways, it's symbolic for me. Like a lot of
Yeah.
what I do is symbolic, and that's why I do like the esoteric, why I do feel it can play a role in a in a daily practice of living as if
Yeah.
you're living as God, and that is it sets intention. To me, that's what all of these magical rituals, these things are. It sets intention,
Yeah.
and that intentionality is does something in
Yeah,
some
you
way I
find what
can't
you're looking
describe.
for.
You do, and the more open you can be about it in terms of what you, and that's why I say, in the desire you use the sick Ferrari, and you're absolutely right. No one really wants a I mean, maybe there's people who just want it because it's fun. It's like, hey, I want to try this. It would be fun to have. Cool, but most of the time, if it's something that's to the level of I really want this, where you're going to try to manifest it, at least as you're starting out, like it's because you want what having a Ferrari would mean to you. It would mean that I'm successful. It would mean that I have a big dick or whatever it happens
Yeah,
to be.
yeah.
I mean, not to be crass, but I mean, it'd be reclaimed masculinity, perhaps, or
Yeah.
whatever. A sign that I've made it, and yes, I mean, people could just want to go fast and cool. I mean, I don't want a Ferrari personally, but that's the practical side of me. And so, but why, so understanding why you really want it is important, because just give yourself what you really want. Like
Yeah.
there's no one to take it from you. You don't need anyone else to give you that Ferrari. If what you, so let's say that you want the Ferrari, but what you really want is to feel proud about yourself, and to you this Ferrari is a symbol that says you've made it. Okay, well, give yourself that feeling of having made it. Like that's what I would try to manifest.
Yeah.
Not, again, but you can. That's where I think people can very easily take it to that level of, and then it becomes all spiritual, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh,
It's
oh,
not
well,
grounded
it's not
into
practical.
reality.
It's not
Yeah.
pragmatic. And at the end of the day, that's what I think is spiritual bypassing. That's what I did for a long time, was
Yeah.
was put this, not taking, and you mentioned about blame before, like, oh, you're blaming the victim kind of thing. And I totally get that. And that's why I would never say you should do this, like you should live this
Right.
way. But to somebody who's interested in exploring this, that is, you have to take responsibility and say, I am the sole cause of the problems of my life. Period. Like I am the one I am the jailer, and I am the one I am the one in prison. And until you're willing to do that, you're going to just keep getting more of it's everybody. Somebody will always come in and get, because you believe this is true. You believe that people are holding you back. Oh, it's because of this person, or my boss hates me, or whatever it is, right? Well, if you're not willing to take responsibility for that, or at least entertain the notion to say, let me just clear the board. Let me try this fucking thing. Try to prove me fucking wrong. Like, I love that. Like, fucking come here, make a comment and say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to fucking prove you wrong, Dennis. You're so full of shit. Like, I dare you to do that. Like, do it and come and prove me wrong. I want you to. Like, don't believe me because I say it, but you won't prove me. I don't believe you can prove me wrong if you do it in good faith and actually try this. Like, I don't think you can prove me wrong, literally. I'm that confident in it if you actually do it in good faith, because it just works. But it does require taking responsibility for your own thoughts, for what you have created. And that's not always easy. And listen, and again, and particularly like this idea of somebody who is a woman who was sexually assaulted by a stranger, or was abused by their husband or their partner. Like, I'm not, it can sound very much like, oh, you need to take responsibility for your part in this. And it does sound very victim blamey. And I get that. But it's not, blame suggests you've done something wrong. And I don't believe anyone who's been a victim or who has had this experience of terrible abuse or sexual abuse or emotional abuse, which we, I mean, it's not their fault. Like, so that's blame.
Right.
Blame says you could have done something differently. I don't think you could have, because you didn't know. Like, you didn't understand that you created your own reality. So how can you blame yourself for that? Like you had no knowledge of it. My view is though, once you know, then you're foolish if you don't at least try it and see it, what it changes, and just see how it changes things. Because the only way you're going to get this is through experience. You can know it in your knowledge. You can read about it, and I did for years. And there's a lot of good truth there. But at the end of the day, the pragmatic side, I call myself a pragmatic mystic in some senses. Because if it doesn't make my life better,
it doesn't matter.
Then why, then it's crap. And I can honestly say, in my 30 plus years as a roughly devoted anyway, evangelical Christian, I don't feel my life was as good. I don't feel I was as good of a person. I don't feel I was as secure, as emotionally open, as as calm meaning the lack of anxiety. I was the most anxious motherfucker you could imagine as a devout evangelical Christian. I was scared out of my mind every minute of every day.
Yeah.
Waiting for the other shoe to drop. I don't do that anymore. Like literally my anxiety has gone from an 8, 9 at all times to like a 2. And I've gotten off of the anxiety meds I used to be on. So not only did my anxiety go down, but the meds did absolutely nothing to take away the anxiety. But this did. So again, we talk about the fruit. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I know it's true and I know it works. And I also know our purpose on earth is, I also get why people, you go from one place to another in this. You start, I would contend almost everybody starts because they want something and they're sad that they don't have that thing. And I would further go on to say, if I'm truly honest, 99% of the time, that thing is a person, is what it is. It's a relationship, a relationship that somebody wants. It's a husband, it's a wife, it's a boyfriend, it's a girlfriend, it's a romantic relationship. I'd say 95% of the time, if people are honest, that's why they came to this. That's why they found law of attraction. That's why they found law of assumption. That's why they found manifestation. It's because they're heartbroken because their specific person isn't with them, and that they have a hole in themselves. That's why they come to it. That's just and the other 5% of the time, it's another relationship, but it's not necessarily a romantic relationship. It's some other relationship with a boss, with some impactful relationship, but not necessarily a romantic relationship. And that's just the truth of it. No, there's some, obviously, but it works in every aspect of your life. But that's why people come to it. And I think, that's my hypothesis. And that's okay. It doesn't matter how you come to it, but that's not where you stay. Because at the end of the day, it's so much more than that person or that job or that situation. You come because it changes how you see the world. And that is where the real value, because when you truly change what you believe about events, you change your feelings, you change your emotions, and you change your actions. That's how powerful your beliefs are. And when you change those, that, so why do we go to therapy? We go to therapy because we want to change we don't like the way we feel about something. We want to change ourselves. We want to work through something. But fundamentally, we want to change something we believe about ourselves. That's why most of us go to therapy. Now some people go to therapy just because they want to be heard, which again, what's the belief? I'm not heard. So they want to change that belief. How do they change it? Well, they come to see me. They come to see a therapist. They feel heard. So all of a sudden now their brain gets this cognitive dissonance that, wait a second, like, okay, I am not heard. Well, no, I am. That changes to, well, I'm not heard, but I am heard here. I'm heard with my therapist. That's my time to be. Well, if you're heard by but then you go, oh, well, I pay my therapist. That's why they hear me. But more and more, you shift your perception of things.
Yeah,
again,
the goalpost
I can't stop
moves.
you from believing. So I can't. If you want to hold on to a belief, you're going to hold on to it. So I'm not going to try to change anybody to say, if you believe that Jesus is Lord and that's the only way to heaven, I'm not going to disabuse you of that notion. I don't agree. But I'm not, I see no need to fight or argue or do anything else because I'm not going to change your beliefs.
Well, and I think with really big beliefs like these and those, it does really come back to like no logical argument has ever like a logic proof has never made anyone religious. A logic proof has never made anyone find God. It's in the same way that a logic proof has never been the reason someone has lost their faith or deconstructed. It is one of those things that it's a long process either way, and it is so internal and personal that it's like, I think it's exactly what you're saying. Like, you can't, even if you had all of these examples, it doesn't really matter. Maybe it would make someone feel good to think that, like, oh yeah, I do believe this, and these examples kind of support my belief, and that's uplifting. Or maybe it just gives someone who doesn't believe more information to try and tear down, like, this is ridiculous, and I'm going to deconstruct all the different ways that this example actually wasn't whatever. But that's not the thing that's going to convince anyone. The thing that's going to convince anyone of anything is your relationship to it and your experience with it. And I think for the last little section here, I want to make sure we touch on, because this is such an intersection for you personally, Dennis, with this work and stepping into like your power, your authority, your sovereignty, that intersects so profoundly with empowering women. Why do those intersect for you, and how, like, with everything that we've been talking about, what's the exchange with divine feminine here?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't have a logical answer for you. I just know that it's the spiritual work I've been doing. The esoteric work, my work with Lilith, and again, I can't say I've ever seen Lilith with my eyes. I can't even say I've even felt anything or heard anything. I would love to. I'm open to that experience. Like, I would love to experience that. I cannot say I have ever witnessed anything with my senses that I would say was supernatural. Okay, yeah, just above my senses. Now, I've witnessed events, I've witnessed things that have occurred, I've had feelings that felt supernatural, that were beyond the ordinary, but those were feelings. Like, I remember one time I was in 11th grade with my best friend. We were playing basketball at this, just a basketball, court that was near his house, and all of a sudden I got this immense feeling of dread. Just, and like, I can't say I've ever felt that. I'm not sure that I've ever felt it before, and I don't know that I've ever felt it again. So I remember I was in 11th grade, and and I was kind of ignoring it, because it's like, oh, this is stupid. And but
There's
finally,
no
after about
reason.
10 minutes,
Yeah.
I'm like, this, I asked my friend, and I'm like, and neither of us were very spiritual or anything else, really. I'm just like, dude, I feel weird. Like, do you feel weird? Like, it feels eerie to me right now. Do you feel that way? He's like, yes. Oh my God. I'm like, let's get the hell out of here. He's like, yeah. And we left. No, nothing happened. Like,
Yeah.
I have no evidence. I mean, what was that? What meaning do I make out of that? In
Well,
the sense
if you stayed, maybe something would have,
exactly, but I can't prove it. But
Right.
so those are I have had a few experiences like that. Now, some people see things, some people hear things. Like, and I don't personally. But for my all I know is I started doing these workings with a completely, like, open heart of, make me better, like, bring, and sort of destiny magic things, like, okay, what am I supposed to be doing? Because I got into this. I went to school. I went back to school for no particular, like, I didn't have some grand vision. It just felt right to do. Like, it just
Mm.
clicked. The classes I take. I mean, I manifested. I think it's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Getting into the internal family systems training a year and a half ago. Like, that was so hard to get into. People still can't get into it, and yet I did, because I said I was going to. And now, again, can I prove that I changed anything? No, because I can't run an A/B experiment on it.
Right.
But so to answer, there's a long-winded way of saying I don't know how I got here. I just know that this is where I was supposed to be. And I love that about it. I have no idea why I'm called to this. I have no idea. I know I'm effective. because I've literally watched people I've worked with manifest crazy shit in their lives. Like literally, I've seen the changes in the people I've worked with. And so I know I have something. I don't know what it is. Like I mean, half the time I have to ask. Like every time I have a session, I ask. Like, okay, what did, not every time, but often I do. What do you take away from today? Like, what was valuable for you today? Because I ask that not because I'm looking for my own, tell me how great I am. I do that because honestly, I don't know a lot of times. And that to me is the poetic beauty of it. That I can be so my I am, my godness, and your godness, and our everybody's godness, because I don't put me above anyone else. I don't put me above you.
Right.
I see you wear your crown. I see and that's what's changed for me. When I walk around the streets, I see people wearing crowns. And I use that as when I get upset at somebody, or when I'm human. When I'm annoyed by somebody, when I don't like somebody, I don't, there's no call to like everybody. But I swear to you, what I do is when I have that, I look at them and I imagine them on a throne. I imagine them wearing a crown.
Yeah.
I think it is how I see people. No, it doesn't necessarily make me like them. It doesn't make me want to go hang out with them. It doesn't make me want to spend time with them. It doesn't make me want to piss on them if they were on fire. But it does change how I see them. And it changes how I interact with them. But for me personally, I don't know. This just is in my blood. Like I love doing what I do. And it's interesting. I just wrote a post about free will. I think that might
we'll start putting your Substack in the video description too. For any listeners, Dennis has recently started publishing on a Substack, so definitely go check out his writings. Link down below wherever you're listening.
And readers, Reese and I will both be publishing on more on what we're doing here as well. So look forward to that too. Yeah, I mean, so for me, I do think they are related. In terms of, okay, well, how does this idea of empowering women and well, if when you come to the understanding of who you are, then that changes everything, because everything flows from that belief of who you are. And so it's a natural fit for me because I do believe, I do genuinely believe that in some way I can't quantify, I am a part of God. I am God.
Yeah.
I am source and you are source. And can I trample your free will, quote unquote? Well, if I don't believe there's free will in the first place, then I can't really trample your free will, because you're here.
What is there to trample?
What is there to trample? Essentially, you're here because you're supposed to be here. You couldn't choose not to be here. You may think you could, and I may think I could, but can I? I don't know. I mean, I guess we could try, but then that was just implanted. So what's it free will now? But what I do know is to me, I love. And maybe it is Lilith's influence. I mean, again, I just because I don't see her with my physical eyes or hear her with my physical ears doesn't mean that the spiritual man, my true self, isn't interacting with her and dancing. I have no idea.
Oh, absolutely.
I can't see it. I can't. My human brain doesn't see it, but I still do it. I still believe it, and so maybe that influenced me.
Yeah. I will say, the more this is such an interesting thing too, because I think self-doubt of it all, that's like, am I just seeing things, or that was in the corner of my eye, or like that kind of piece, or it's like that creak was just the house settling kind of stuff, where it's easy to explain certain things away. But the more that you lean into just this kind of a wild abandon of I want to see magic and everything, and that means some things are going to be a little freaky and scary, but also beautiful and amazing. You do start to see more things and experience them with your senses too, the more you allow them to be there, which is just so funny, because the more that you're in it, it's a vicious cycle of increasing, that because you communicate to source, your holist self, whatever, that you're open to it, and so it kind of opens the gateway a little bit. And again, can you prove that anything isn't just coincidence? Maybe not, but the fact that since I got a sign a few weeks ago that was a rainbow, and rainbows have never been a symbol for me. There are a few things that have almost always been symbols, and there's certain symbols that relate, like my grandma that passed. I have a symbol that I'm like, every time I see that, it's my grandma. The way a lot of people are like, oh, a butterfly is, my great aunt, or I have a friend who red lipstick is her mom to her, and anytime she sees like a bright red lipstick, it's her mom. And it's like, that's a very normal thing. But rainbows were never really a thing for me, like it's just not. I saw a rainbow a few weeks ago at a very serendipitous moment. And since then, I've been seeing rainbows in everything. And it's like my glass of white wine. I just see the rainbow reflect off of it. I get home and there's a rainbow across my bed that I had never seen before in my room, like a friend texts me a rainbow emoji, and they never use rainbow emojis. And so again, all coincidences, but even, why not? Yeah, maybe I'm crazy, but I'm sorry you don't have love and magic and poetry in your heart. Yes, I can find magic in the numbers on a microwave. I can. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's beautiful that I can find that beauty there, and that you find it there too. And I do think there is something very divinely feminine about the receptivity of that, about being able to receive messages and symbols and open yourself to what the universe has to offer, to allow yourself to be held by these things. And you don't have to rush in with the aggressive, which, not to say that command and authority and aggression aren't necessary in certain aspects of life, but you don't have to rush in with that masculine energy to immediately shut things down all the time. Sometimes you can just receive, and you don't even have to make sense of it. A lot of times, one of my favorite things to do when I see an angel number is just to, oh, there it is, and then keep going, and then maybe think about it later. But it's like, not every single thing has to be it. This is the message. It's just a little, it's like if you're holding someone's hand and they just squeeze it a little bit, right? It's just I'm here with you. I'm here with you. Stay present. Stay present. And I don't even know why I started talking about this, but the magic, right?
Huh. Yeah, the magic in every day. And I agree with you. Like, no, again, I think sometimes people get turned off because people, like everything else, people feel the need to share everything. You walk around talking about angel numbers, or,
yeah,
I mean, people just, it frustrates, but I think there's actually a jealousy in a way, because like, you're not, the problem is people who get upset at people who see signs in everything, or roll their eyes, or this, that, and the other thing, in a sense, I think it's a defense mechanism, because it's, things aren't going the way they want them to go. And so now here's this person who seems like a complete lunatic. And I mean, listen, there's a type, right? I mean, when you start talking about crystals and angel numbers and all, there's a type, and it's not necessarily,
as one of my dear friends calls it.
What is it?
Etsy witch, which of course is not to be derogatory towards Etsy witches, because there are some really beautiful, magical, powerful Etsy witches, but I think we all know the energy we're talking about.
And so I think that just, I think people are jealous of that in some senses. Like what is wrong with living life that way? Like who does it hurt? Versus, like, I can give you 10 arguments why you believing in eternal life is harmful to others.
I saw
it's good for you, but it's harmful for others.
Right. I saw something the other day that was like, which this is there's other things in it, but just for the sake of this, astrology has just as much proof as Christianity does, and it's never made someone feel bad for being gay. And I was like, there you go. There you go. And then, of course, in the comments, there's the debate about, like, actually astrology is based in science, and there's these other things, and, which I think is an interesting debate to have, because the more I learn about astrology, the more the science speaks through it, and it really is fascinating. As someone who I do have a predisposition to seeing the spiritual in things, but I do like to have the science kind of back up certain things too. I'm very
Yeah,
even
yeah, I get
keeled
it.
in that
I get
sense.
it.
But the more you dig into astrology, the more that it's really fascinating. There's still a lot for me to learn, but fascinating. But all that to
And
say,
that's
it's
how
like,
that's how
even if it feels like there's no proof there to you, it's never told someone they can't marry who they love.
I know, I love that, and that's how I feel a lot about human design as well, because
Yeah,
it's in the same. I mean, to some degree. I mean, others would argue otherwise, and but to me,
right.
it's similar. But for some reason, I like maybe the more pseudo scientific aspect of things,
Yeah.
or
It does have
you know.
that a bit more sciency flavor to it.
Yeah, it feels more engineering, whereas
Yeah, it does.
astrology to me can feel very woo woo at times. Although I've looked at both. I mean, I have a full chart, and I've certainly I have my human design chart. I think these are all frameworks. To me, I like
Yes.
human design a little bit better because I actually can see the practical effects of it. Like I could see how living
Yeah,
according to your design is helpful. I've yet to find that so much in astrology from just my own
sure.
but that's not to say there's nothing there. There's
Right.
there's my issue with folks who are very heavy into astrology, or not issue, but what comes up for me is this, you know, are you relying on your the current day and the stars to guide your life? So in other words, I won't if my sign says this is inauspicious, then I'm not going to do it. That
Mm.
that when you start to live life that way, that's where I
You give
personally
away your
question
power.
myself. Because
Yeah.
I don't ever want to give away my power to now, and so the framework of it to understand better how I work, that gives me something to work with. So from a human design perspective, I'm a manifesting generator. My my strategy is to respond, and my authority is emotional. So that means I should be making, roughly speaking, I should not be initiating for the sake of initiating. I need to respond to other opportunities, and I need to respond from not my head but my gut, my sacral, because that's how I'm designed to operate. And in reading this and knowing myself better from this framework, I have seen that to be true in my life. So the when I do things more according to my design in my past, in life, but certainly historically, it has worked out a lot better for me, and given me a better outcome, a happier outcome, an easier outcome than the times when I've tried to force things and live outside of my human design. So again,
Mm.
is it true? I have no fucking clue. I mean, it was written by a guy in the '80s who had a vision, not even high, just had a vision. So like, and then he changed his name, and I mean, you could say it's a cult. I don't know. I don't think it is, but it's not. Is it true? It's is it useful?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I mean, and
that's how I
then
look at it.
then we look at Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, Clifton Strengths, right? All of these things that, sure, may be based more in provable sciences, but is it useful? Does it help you understand yourself? And does it make you a better person? If something is helping you live in love, I'm like, please, please do it. Please, please, please find the thing that makes you light up. Like, and don't judge when someone else has found that thing for them, unless the thing they're doing is hurting other people. Then, yeah, judge and tell them not to hurt other people. But you hear what I'm
Yeah, and
saying? I do now need to
absolutely.
ask you what your sun, moon, and rising are.
I'll
if
have
you
to
if you
look.
know off the top of your head. Oh, don't worry
I,
about it
I'll
then.
send.
Not a
I will send you my complete chart, Reese. You can.
to
I'm
read it.
more
I
than
would love
happy to give
to.
it to you.
Um,
Very curious what you'd make of it, actually, because I've never
yeah,
really done much. I mean, I think at the end of the day, I love what you said there, because I think that's a great note to come to an end for today. Is the real question is does this make me better? Do I
yeah,
notice it? Do I feel better? Do I have objective measures that I'm better? Because what do people say about me? Like that again, it's all about the fruit. I can say this
yeah,
tree is lovely, but if every time I touch the fruit it gives me, it makes my skin blister and I get rashes everywhere. How can that fruit be good? I don't care what anybody says. Like, do not take Ozempic if you're allergic to Ozempic. Like sometimes I
Yeah.
think we like
Yeah.
duh, but we do that in everyday life. Like we're
Yeah.
allergic to what we're doing, but yet we keep doing it. Like
Well, and
all
you
I
know
can say is,
what? Different
are you
people have
happy?
different allergies too, right? Like I am so allergic to Christianity and I'll own it. Like that, and maybe it was because, you get too much of something, and then your body, like if you get food poisoning from a certain food, maybe you liked it before, but then you can't go back to it because of the sense memory. So maybe something like that's going on. And
Yeah,
I say
yeah.
that from a place of like fully seeing the way that Christianity makes some people much better people, and it makes them loving, and it allows them to be a better version of themselves. And I'm so glad that those people have found Christianity. But the pieces of it that I'm allergic to, I mean, just kind of like you said earlier, that are anxiety ridden, it's like it doesn't work for me. But just because Christianity may be my peanut allergy, I'm really trying to see the way it could be someone else's peanut butter.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Again, it's just curious to me. Again, this fundamentally comes from my idea that I'm making it up as I go along. Like whatever I want to. And to me, religion is now a hobby. So I would say I have a hobby of the esoteric.
Yeah.
I say that with a lot of love though, because I do take it very seriously. Like I genuinely take my practice seriously.
Yeah.
And I hold space for the fact that I also know that I also believe I'm just making this up. Like it's a weird place to be, but I enjoy it, and I don't think it hurts anything. And I think I've seen changes, like even just
Yeah.
who I am, who I've become because of what I am a better person now than I was 5 years ago. Like in whatever that means to be better. I mean, I'm still me,
Right.
so but on every metric, I think I treat people better. I'm in a better place. I help people more. My whole goal is to make people see how awesome they are and that they are
Yeah.
fucking kings and queens. Like now, I've chosen to focus more on the queen aspect because that's my energy. That's what I've called to. I genuinely believe that. But I still believe it's true whether you're male or female. There is no
Yeah.
male or female. There is no Jew or Greek. There is no slave or free. Like there's just one. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. It's right there. And that's why I think I love Neville, because he does use the Bible a lot. And I love his
Yeah.
interpretation of the Bible. And it's not for everybody. I get it. Like to me, that's who I
Y'all
am.
speak a
And
similar language, though. Yeah.
I do. And that's how my brain works. And I believe there's
Right.
truth to it. But everyone needs,
Yeah.
again, all I would encourage listeners, if this is at all interesting, if you're still listening, which I assume it would be listen, you have to be somewhat interesting if you were still listening.
Yeah. You should subscribe because you
Yes,
probably
you
would
certainly
like the
should
other
subscribe.
conversations that Dennis and I have been having. But yeah, continue.
But just this is something you can test. And you don't have to tell anyone you're testing it. So it literally costs you nothing. Like you don't even have to put your reputation on the line. Only with yourself. And are you scared? Like, and if you are,
Yeah.
cool, then maybe that's where you need to be. But just test it. Try it. Pick something stupid and try it. Pick something that doesn't
Where
matter.
your
Better
fear
to start with
is,
something
there your
that
task
literally doesn't
is.
matter to you. Manifest a free cup of coffee. Like, try. I mean, whatever. Like, it doesn't have to be earth shattering. Manifest something you don't even give a shit about. Seeing a purple Porsche on the road. I don't know. I manifested seeing a green flamingo. I literally did. Like, why did I pick a green flamingo? I have no idea. I'm just like, oh, I want something that's absolutely absurd. And I saw it. Like, so literally, I saw it. Again, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't prove shit. I freely admit that. But that's why I say try it yourself and convince yourself.
Yeah.
Because that's all you have to convince. You don't have to, you're not going to convince me one way or another. And I don't know. I'm John the Baptist. I'm just out here a little bit crazy. And I'm willing to accept that. I fully accept. I love the Billy Joel song. I fully believe that you may be right and I may be crazy, but it just may be a lunatic you're looking for. Like
Yeah.
literally, I feel that way sometimes, and that's good because you know what? It's only delusional if it doesn't actually happen. Like what there was a line my daughter got into Succession, the TV show on HBO,
Yeah.
and it's a great show, but And that would actually be another interesting show to to do a
Yeah.
podcast on in terms of power and femininity but in very early episodes he has this line that I just loved. Well, it was like, everyone everyone tells you you're crazy until the thing that you see actually happens, and then it was just bound to happen anyway. And to me, that's just the perfect definition of what manifestation is. Like, manifestation done right, everyone was just going to say it was going to fucking happen anyway. Isn't that obvious? It was so fucking obvious that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the way it works. I swear, however it works, and just the fact that there's probably a better than 50% chance this is all just a computer simulation anyway, that we just can't figure that out. Like, honestly, that is my running hypothesis. But in whatever, if that's true, then this seems to be how the simulation works somehow. Like, and I'm
yeah.
okay with that. Like, you know what? That's the pragmatic side. Like, I don't know. Maybe there's a God. Maybe there's
learning
source.
the
Maybe
rules
there's
of the
nothing.
game. Yeah.
We're making them up as we go along, so why not make up good things? Like, why? So, I've always thought it funny. Why do people choose? Why do people, if you truly believe you're choosing what you believe and that there is no objective truth here, and that, why would you choose? Why would you choose a religion where you're made to feel like a piece of shit? Like, where you are absolute garbage, and the only reason it's okay is because God made a way for you by sending his son to die for you instead. Which brings up so many questions. Like, why did he need to do that if he's the one making the rules? Like, that's that's like basically when I was a kid, we used to play the game where you grab the back of somebody's collar, you push them forward and pull them back, and like saved your life. Like, oh, I was going to push you into traffic, but I held on to you. Oh yeah, I mean, it was never it was. I guess we were crazy. Yeah, we would play that. Maybe that was a boy thing. I don't know.
I was about to say, if that was I gotta say, I thank the Holy Lord every single day that I am a woman.
Yeah, there are some dumb things that we used to do, but that was something we would do. It was like, oh, saved your life, and that's what I really feel like that's what Christianity is. Like, oh, saved your soul, like, just, but you caused it in the first place, like, so why? I don't know. Again, why would you choose that? And the fact is, I mean, honestly, 99% of people don't choose it. It was chosen for them. It was chosen from them based on geography, based on their culture. And if you and I had been born in Afghanistan, 9.9% chance we'd both be Muslim and be having a very different well, we probably wouldn't be talking with one another. It just goes to, I mean, when you think about it that way. Again, is it all just, why is it better to, it's just easier and nicer to just live life with the simple assumption that everything's working out for me. That no matter what it is, this is what need to happen to get to the things I want. Like, it's just nicer. Like, it's just,
the universe
more pleasant.
Is always conspiring in your favor. It is. Even when it feels like it's not, it is, because this is one of my therapist's favorite things is I needed to hit that red light because there was a wreck up ahead. If I got there early, I could have tripped and fallen. It's like that. You do not know what you are being saved from every single time a door closes, because you don't know what's on the other side of the door. You think you do. You imagine what it is, and you make out all the good things that you missed out on. But the grass is always greener, even for the version of life that you've created in your head. But the universe is conspiring in your favor. It is.
I love that. Yeah, just believe that and act as if that's true. Like, if you're going to manifest anything, manifest that. Like, fuck all the other shit. Like, it's all useless, but just believe that. And we started with luck, right? That to me is what I would define luck as. The universe conspiring in my favor. Why not?
Yeah.
Like, why not choose to believe that? You want to talk about free will? Okay, choose to believe that. Use your free will there and see what happens if you think you have free will. Like, choose to believe that. It's a choice. So then, do you get upset when you get stopped at a red light if you truly believe that? No. Do you worry about being late to an engagement? No. Because maybe I was meant to be late. No. Again, that doesn't give us right to go off and be assholes to everybody. Like, I hate being late to things. I hate to make other people wait. So I won't do that. But I could. If I did, it would happen for a reason. Again, it's just choose to believe that. Make that your free will choice. Then you don't need to choose anything else. Like, just choose that one thing. I choose to believe that everything works out for me at all times. I mean, listen, if I'm going to say robotic affirmations, I want to say that every hour on the hour. Like, I want that
Yeah.
playing in my mind constantly. I want to, those old commercials. Now I'm really dating myself. The Palmolive commercials were like, oh, you're soaking in this dish soap. Like anyone older, this will get that. Um, but that's how it is with this. Like, I want to saturate myself with this idea that
Yeah.
I I cannot make any mistakes. I literally cannot make a mistake. Why not? Like, I don't go around hurting people. So, this is not I mean, I could see how somebody could take this to be a complete jerk. I mean, oh, I can't make any
Right.
mistakes. I mean, but in a sense, doesn't the current president kind of do that? And I don't know. He seems to manifest a lot of shit, dude. Like, talk about good, bad, or ugly. Like, what the
Right.
fuck? 10
Well,
years ago, this would
and
have been impossible.
yeah, yeah. I do think that well, and with this, like, you don't make any mistakes. I think that there is like a higher order and a lower order of that, right? Where it's like, you don't make any mistakes in the sense that, like, you can't really do anything wrong, and that even when you do make a mistake, the lesson you are supposed to learn there is the better choice, because it's the path of something you need to learn, right? Like, even if I accidentally, like, put my foot in my mouth with my dear friend and I accidentally say something, like, is that a mistake in some sense? Yes, but also through me messing up, having a conversation with my friend about it, our friendship gets closer. So was it a mistake? In some senses, yes, but in other senses, no, because it brought me closer to a dear friend. So I think that's kind of the other. I mean, I don't know. Don't let me project that onto you, but that's how I think about this. Like, you can't make mistakes thing too. That's like, not in a you're infallible, but in a find the lesson, find the learning, find the good in it all, because it is there. The church is everywhere for those with eyes to see.
Yeah, it's. I even take it a step further in that I'll go one level. I'll go meta beyond that and just say that not that I needed to learn a lesson, not that that it just was what needed to happen. Period. Because it's
Mm,
what I needed to get what I really want. It's what I needed to get what my purpose is. What my the reason I'm here to occur for me to be fulfilled. I just choose. Do I understand it? No. Do I have proof that it's true? No. God no. Um, but the more you lean into it as a thought exercise, the less anxious you get, because you can just
mm,
let that shit go. Because it's like,
yeah.
either this is true or it isn't. If it isn't true, then I'm fucked. Like, because I can't control anything, and life is fucking random, and I have no control over it. So, okay. I mean, that's the alternative to me. Like,
Yeah.
because I don't, you'll never get me to believe that there's a daddy in the sky controlling everything.
Yeah. No
So,
Sky Daddy.
there's no sky daddy. So, what else do I have to fall back on? I choose to fall back on me, being God. That
Yeah.
and I call it the God me. I don't I do, and maybe someday I'll get to the point where I don't feel the need to differentiate between me, the I here on this earth, this flesh bag, versus the God me. Maybe at some point you become so one that they are just one in the same. But and
Right.
I'll leave with
In
this.
the
Like,
Sorry, I was just gonna say, in the non-duality of it all too, right? That it's like any sort of God is all of us, and so God me is also God you, and then in dissolving this idea of the self. But in a recent podcast episode that I recorded, my guest said you have to have an ego to transcend the ego. So there is something too about the experience of flesh bagness that is important. But sorry, I'll toss back to
yeah,
you.
no, you're absolutely right. There's something. I mean, there's something in this existence that needed to happen. I don't know. It wouldn't be the same without it. And I think it's the experience of this. I mean, think about it. If you were God, right? So whatever that means to you, source, whatever. We use words like omnipotent, etc. But, like, what is the one thing if you know everything, what is the one thing you can't do? Well, you can't not know something, and maybe that gets old. Like, maybe knowing everything all the time, all at once, is just over fucking whelming, even to God. And so,
Yeah.
you know what? Like, maybe our human existence is God's fucking vacation. I don't know. Like, and we may say, why the hell would you want this vacation? You to go back to the homeless person on the street. Like, okay, if that's God, why would he choose that vacation? I don't know. Maybe experiencing whatever is preferable when you're a being that is everything all at once to nothing, to being that being. Like, the good and the bad cease to have meaning at that point because you're all of it anyway. I don't know. It's these glimpses. I don't think our human mind is able to. I think our
Yeah.
spirit can get it, but our mind can't. And I'll just leave it with this, even for Christians. Like, if any actually listen to us, I don't know. But Jesus, read John 16 and John 17, where it's this brilliant prayer by Jesus over his disciples. And he says, Father, you help. And so at one point, I think in John 16, Jesus says, I thank you, or basically says, you and I are one, talking to the Father. The Father and I are one. And he says this in multiple places. And so people use this as idea, the Trinity. This is sort of the basis for the Trinity, which didn't exist at the time of the writing of the New Testament, and philosophical concept of a Trinity, three beings in one, would not exist for hundreds of years. So anyone who tries to point at the Bible to say there's the Trinity is literally has no idea what they're talking about, because that concept literally didn't exist at the time. But anyway, if you just read those two chapters, Jesus says, the Father and I are one. But then later he says, I pray that my followers, my disciples, would know that they and I are one as you and I are one. So whatever relationship Jesus is to the Father, we are as well.
Right.
Because he's one with God, he said, and he prays that we would be one with him in the same way he's one with God. So I'm no mathematician anymore, but that
transitive property.
Transitive property of being. I must also be one with God. Like,
yeah.
I mean, that there you want some logic, but again, I would be curious for anyone Christian how, if you truly listen to this with ears to hear and read that, what you make of it, without reading some apologetic argument for it. Just really, what meaning do you make of that? Like, Jesus's words, if you believe in Jesus, you believe his words, then you have to believe that piece too. Yeah. Or you're cherry picking. If you're consistent, you have to believe that. So what do you make of that? And for me, I guess I make that I am God. That literally there is and God is me, and we are one, and you are there too, and all of our listeners are there too. And it's just beautiful when you can really focus on that. I don't know. It is. And that's why I can't stop talking about it, because it is everything to me. It is the only thing to me. And in 50 years...
It's the thing that's like, whatever the big question, I've just, recently I've been calling it the mystery, right? Because it's like source, spirituality, religion. Like, I like saying source, but also I think that's because like God carries so many connotations, and I would like to be able to use that word without all of the connotations it carries. But I've just been saying the mystery because I think that kind of separates some of the spiritualness too, that is like, now even spirituality as a word turns people away because there's all these connotations with it. So I'm like, whatever your relationship to the mystery is, it is the most important thing. Whether or not, if there is a God, or if any religion is true, that is the most important question. It is.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it is everything, right?
Yeah. And for me, that's why I can't not talk about it. Because it is the most important, it is the most fascinating, it is the thing that I love the most. I love this idea of who I am. And I want others to feel this way. Because it is so wonderful to think of yourself this way. It is freedom. It is, and it's responsibility, because it's hard in this world to continue. And that's why I do like affirmations. Some people don't like affirmations, but you're not affirming to make it happen. You're affirming to remind yourself that it's already true. And it's all in that mindset. If you're sitting there trying to make it happen, you'll be trying for a long time. But when you start to just allow, I love the word allow, because that's what it is. You just allow it to be true. You let the words wash over you, and you just allow them. And you say, I just choose to believe this is true. I choose to believe this is who I am. And when I don't feel that way, it doesn't matter. I still choose to believe this. There's your free will,
Yeah.
Choose to be God. That is your free will. I mean, that's the most important choice you can ever make. Choose to believe you're God and see what happens.
What an interesting conundrum that is for the free will logician. But I guess we'll leave you with that question, listeners. As always, I hope we raise more questions than answers we provide, and I think we did a good job of that today.
We raised a lot. But...
Yeah. But Dennis, as always, thank you so much. Listeners, Thank y'all for being here and being a part of our meaning, and we will catch y'all next time. Bow Down is a weekly podcast from the Cohere Collective that explores esoteric and empowered feminism.
Please subscribe to Bow Down wherever you may be listening. And if you enjoyed the episode, please leave us a like, a 5-star rating, and a review. And if there's anyone you think would enjoy this episode, or maybe just needs to hear it, please share it.
If you want to stay up to date on all things Bow Down, you can follow the Cohere Collective on any social media platform at the Cohere Collective, and check out other content and offerings at www.thecoherecollective.com.
If you're interested in working with Reese to find and pursue your purpose, I encourage you to head to www.thecoherecollective.com/life-coaching.
If you're interested in working with Dennis to shed your mask and embrace your desires, you can email Dennis at dennis@theheartstoybox.com.
A huge thank you to Jack Corbett for Bow Down's music. You can find him on Instagram at j.corbe. Thank you all for joining us today. We're so glad you're here.
And as always, we hope you feel like you are living more coherently. And until next time, love.